Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special program this evening on Nonviolence Begins With Me platform. This week, we have been talking in a special way about these COVID times, and we are under the theme Coping in COVID times. And these have been difficult times, no doubt. We have all been facing a situation in the world and around our world and in our lives personally, in our families, workplaces, in the street, in our communities, in different subsets of our society. We've been facing and dealing with a challenge that we have never had to face before, and that is a pandemic, COVID-19. So it's nothing new to us. It's now becoming um, language that we're familiar with. But what is new to us is the new normal, as we've been calling it, or the new things that we must do to live and to thrive in this time. And so on the Nonviolence Begins With Me platform, we want to spend a little time with you today talking about one of those subsets that we must live in. And I think probably the most important of the subsets, and that is in our families. We've been in a period of lockdown and we came out and went back in. And these times of lockdown have definitely created challenges in our family life, in living family. And so we come this evening after a series of other topics, which we know that you have probably been following, or maybe this is your first night joining us on the program, and welcome. Uh, every evening, we have looked at a different topic, and tonight, as I said, we're going to be looking at family and coping mechanisms for living within the lockdown and family. I have a wonderful sleuth and group of people here on this call with me, and they are here with you. My name is Brother Kyle. I'm a member of the Nonviolence Begins With Me committee, and I would like to just quickly welcome all of those who are on the call with us. I want to begin by welcoming our general audience, those who are here to share and chat with us. We have Susan here this evening with us. We have Dr. and Mrs. Shim with us. We have Aaron Matas here with us. We have Candice Clarke-Salloum. And last but certainly not least is our guest this evening. And you have been, I'm sure if you're following, you have noticed that each evening, we've had a feature speaker, a feature presenter. And I will tell you a little bit about her just before she comes on. But we have Dr. Margaret Nakhid-Chatoor with us this evening. And so we are so pleased to be with you. And we're glad that you are here. And we want you to sit back, enjoy, relax. We want you to get involved and engaged in the conversation, have the conversation at home while you're looking at us. And so before we move into the talk and into the sharing, let's take in a moment from our past celebration. And I just want to make sure to point out to you that these images that you are about to see are from our peace rally, the Nonviolence Begins With Me peace rally that took place 2 years ago in the Queen's Park, Savannah. And I just want to say that no one is going to be wearing masks. So, because of course at that time we didn't have a pandemic. So enjoy these scenes from the Queen's Park, Savannah, as we welcome a performance by the Carters, Marie and Philip Carter, who will now render for us Love Me, It's All I Ask of You.
or talk of darkness. Forget these wide-eyed fears. I'm here, nothing can harm you. My words will warm and calm you. Let me be your freedom. Let daylight dry your tears. I'm here with you, beside you, to guard you and to guide you. Shelter. Let me be your light. You're safe, no one will find you. Your fears are far behind you.
All I want is freedom, a world with no more night, and you always beside me, to hold me and to hide me.
Then say you'll share with me one love, one lifetime. Let me lead you from your solitude. Say you need me with you here beside you. Anywhere you go, let me go too. Jesus, that's all I ask of.
Say you'll share with me one love, one lifetime. Say the word and I will follow you.
Share each day with me, each night, each morning.
Say you love
You
me,
know I do.
love me. That's all I ask of you.
The next line in this song, I want to dedicate to Christ, who I've battled with non-stop. But I choose to follow him right to the end of my life. Anywhere you go, let me go too. Love me,
That's all I ask of you.
God bless you all.
So we had a wonderful performance there by the Carters in the Queen's Park Savannah. What a wonderful memory that brings up for all of us. It's nostalgic. But as we return here to our Zoom studio now, we want to get straight into the business, the meat of our evening this evening. We're talking about coping mechanisms, family, and lockdown. And this evening, we have a special guest presenter with us who is, I would consider, an expert in this area and an expert in this topic because she is a clinical psychologist. She has been practicing clinical psychology now for more than 20 years here in Trinidad and Tobago. She's well known among the fraternity of the psychologists. She's a member, a leading member, an executive member of the Association of Registered Psychologists in Trinidad and Tobago. And she specializes in adolescent therapy and adolescent treatment. And so that's very important today. So grab all your kids, bring them along to sit to watch, to listen, so that we could have a comprehensive conversation that engages the whole family. Welcome, and over to you, Dr. Margaret Nakhid-Chatoor.
Thank you, Brother Carl. Good to be on here this afternoon. Welcome to all of our audience, and thank you for having me on. So the topic this afternoon is how can families cope during this lockdown pandemic? And the unique nature of this pandemic places parents, especially, as the first line responders for their children's survival, their care, and their learning. So that if families are to thrive, if they are to survive during this lockdown, we need to begin by first reaching parents with encouragement, with practical ideas to support their families in this time of crisis. This afternoon, however, within families, there are many differing needs, and I want to address, I think, 4 main areas of concern within families. 1, the mental health of families during this lockdown. 2, single-parent families. 3, families with aging parents. And 4, poor households. Because many times we assume that families are okay, or that there are those who are not off the grid. And in each of these 4 situations, I will suggest coping strategies. So let's look at the first area of concern, that is the mental health of families under lockdown. Now, there are reported feelings in these families of hopelessness, loneliness, and fear of being socially excluded or separated from their loved ones, such as extended family members, grandparents, friends. Prolonged stress, boredom that happens, and social isolation, as well as for children, a lack of outdoor play can lead to a higher number of mental health conditions, such as anxiety, and in some cases, even depression. What can you do as parents and caregivers? First of all, parents must engage with the many support services that are offered in education and otherwise, so that there is some kind of structure, there is some kind of routine for their children, and also to keep them engaged in play and learning activities at home. Parents have to be on the alert for early detection of mental health signs in family members, such as sudden changes in their behavior, unusual persistent sadness, excessive worry, a lack of concentration, possibly a lack of even hygiene care, trouble sleeping, and exhaustion. It is important in families to remember that children look to you, parents and caregivers, for guidance on how to react to these stressful events. Do not panic. You have to teach children during this time positive preventive measures, talk with them about their fears, and most importantly, listen. That has been a skill that I think it's more important during this pandemic, listening. This social distancing period, therefore, is a tremendous opportunity for parents to model for children the skills of problem solving, flexibility in adjusting to these new circumstances, balancing work and school activities, getting creative about how to spend time with each other, and connecting with and supporting friends and family members in new and positive ways. If we are to look at the second main area of concern in families, that is the single-parent families, this coronavirus crisis is already tough on families, but for single parents having to manage kids whose schools are closed, whose playgrounds are closed, and who may not have other caregivers for support can be especially overwhelming for single parents. What can you do? Single parents have to acknowledge that right now we are in survival mode. We have to be kind to, you have to be kind to yourself, and remember that though it may feel lonely at times, you are not alone. Everyone is going through this in one way or another. Importantly, get back to the basics. That is, try setting priorities for your children in the morning. What has to be done? And we know that we have to provide possibly good nutrition, exercise, a good place, a good sleeping arrangements, etc. If this is in place, then perhaps add to that. So let's get the basic priorities in place first, and then add to that, if you have time, perhaps games, screen time for the children, play activities, virtual meals with grandparents who they can't connect with, etc. Thirdly, and I'm getting into an area here, less academics. And why I say that, sometimes when you are overwhelmed, you have to settle for less academics at times. For single parents, sometimes it's virtually impossible to work from home and also be your kids' teacher 5 days a week. So if you feel overwhelmed, see if you can manage to do academic work with your child 3 days, possibly instead of 5. You have to be okay. And fourthly, in that dynamic, find time for yourself, single parents. Find times, a few minutes per day, to perhaps engage with your spirituality. Reflect on issues to make positive changes. If you are not good to yourself, if you cannot help yourself, then in no way can you help your child. The third dynamic in families today during this crisis happens to be aging parents. Those over age 65 are considered one of the groups that is most vulnerable to COVID-19. Older persons are being asked to stay at home, but many of these older persons want to venture outside. We have had a lot of calls on the hotline from persons over 60, and they are saddened, they are depressed, they're hopeless. Their adult children also find themselves worrying about their aging parents and their health and safety. Because as older persons, even if you are healthy, you are at greater risk than younger persons because of your weakened immune systems. Retirees and older persons are now experiencing a role reversal in families. Their children are telling them what to do, not the other way around. So what can you do in families with older parents who are resistant to change, who may not want to hear what you have to say? First of all, understand from your parents' perspective how they are coping, their attitudes about being at home, and what risks they feel they can reasonably take. Talk to your parents, listen to them. At this time, in these families with aging parents, doing the right thing for them can lead also to your looking ahead in the future at what you can possibly do for your family. The fourth important dynamic is the dynamic of families who are not coping, families who have lost their jobs, families where are considered to be poor households and where the socioeconomic impact of the pandemic has already pushed many of these households to turn to desperate measures just to survive. In these families, more so, children face an increased risk of sexual exploitation, child abuse, as families sometimes struggle to cope and to feed their children. Many of these persons who have to work outside of the home may not be able to be physically present to monitor what's happening in the homes. And sometimes caregivers who you trust could possibly do harm to these children without supervision. So two major risks identified also in poor households are: one, their learning will be interrupted. When schools close, these children are deprived of opportunities for growth and development. And the disadvantages are disproportionate for these underprivileged learners who tend to have fewer educational opportunities outside of the school. And a second concern that I have in these families, poor nutrition. Many children and youth previously relied on free meals provided at schools for food and for healthy nutrition. And when these schools have closed, their nutrition and overall physical health is compromised. So in these families, and here we bring in the concept of community, the concept of the village, many of these families are in our midst. There has therefore to be a collective narrative across all organizations, an altruistic effort to help Not only those who are affected mentally by the social isolation, by the anxiety, by the job loss, but those parents and families who may need assistance with food hampers, getting a ride to hospitals, getting medication from health centers. We cannot leave it up to government agencies to address all that is needed for the healthy survival of families today in our society. If nothing else, what the coronavirus has taught us more than any other time is that the concept, as I said, of the village is important for families. If we are to survive and thrive, we need each other for support, to help with our families, to help with our aging parents. All of these dynamics happening behind closed doors, happening in social isolation, happening in a time when social distancing is necessary. So in conclusion, parenting and coping has always been a difficult job if persons are not supported by family members or by friends. So how do you cope? And in summing up the main points, let's try to do these. 1, stay informed about the pandemic and be prepared. Being prepared reduces stress. Secondly, as parents, as care providers, manage your own anxiety, manage your own emotions, as this is critical to ensuring that your children can cope with their own feelings and with their own worries. Thirdly, stay connected. Stay connected with family members, with friends, with loved ones. Get help if and when needed. Have a plan B. Have a plan B if there's an emergency, if you have to leave your home in a hurry. If, for example, a family member was diagnosed with COVID-19, always have a plan B in these times. And fourth, maintain your healthy routines wherever possible. Make time in families for fun and meaningful activities that can help everyone to connect, everyone to relax, and that feeling so that social isolation becomes a little bit closer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor. That was an excellent presentation, thought-provoking. Thank you for taking us so deep so quickly. and for raising the span of things that you have raised. I want to ask all of our audience to get in on the conversation. I want to ask the audience to kind of wrap with what you just heard there. It is a lot, but I know I saw some people writing and taking notes. And so I just want to ask for us to start kind of like how they do in the media conferences, that you will have one comment that you are from each media house, and then we will just go to each person. Then if we have time, we will circle back around. So I just want to ask, what are your initial reactions? What resonated? Anything stood out to you that struck you immediately, that you feel in your own experience of family life in this time of lockdown? And I want to first go to Aaron and ask Aaron if he would share with us. Aaron.
Hi again, good night everyone. What stood out, well, basically is getting in with this new way of living and COVID with family. You know, you're home a lot now and there's a lot of restrictions. So, you know, you get that, you get to spend more time with your family. It's a blessing, you know. For me, it's a new era because you're getting accustomed, because my family, we're accustomed to going to church, you know, every on the weekends, and now, you know, we have to get accustomed to that digitally. It's a new experience, you know. You're not receiving Christ, you're receiving him in a spiritual way. So that has been a new challenge. And, you know, just feeling like you're locked down. You're in your home, you're locked down, you can't go out. You know, if you're going out, you have to wear masks. And, you know, but the one good thing is that, you know, spending more time with your parents, you know, like, for instance, how we cope with it is that we'll have some game times, you know, talking about the old days and laughing and catching up. So that's what, for me, would be one of the good things coming out of this COVID, especially with family, you know, getting to know your family history, you know, if I may say.
Interesting, interesting. So coping requires some kind of innovation, some new approaches to family, and to trying to find ways to stay connected with the family and to build those connections, use the time positively to build those connections. Um, how about you, Candice? You want to come in here?
Sure, thank you. Well, so much of what Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor spoke about, I identified with, even though, I don't fit into all the categories, like I don't have aging parents, but I think it's something that there's a thread that runs through what we're all coping with in families. And, if I can kind of sum it up, what she said in my mind and what I used in coping in my own family was to really, one day we were in control of the day after, we were in control of our lives, and the next day it got taken away from us, right? So we were at the mercy of this virus, at the mercy of government, at the mercy, and quickly I had to realize, it took introspection that I needed to focus on what I could control. And so, wearing masks and creating a schedule was very, very important for me. Dr. Chatoor mentioned that. Creating a schedule, building in time for breaks in my work, building in time for happy moments, building in time for connection with friends. I needed to not be a victim, and not feel sorry for myself, and really say, I need a structure. I need to see what is within my control, so to speak, what I can do to make myself and my family be in a better place. And that really turned the fear around. Things like building in time for spirituality was critical, was a cornerstone. But the point is that it was around building a structure in my life that I've stuck with for the last 7 months, that I'm kind of attached to now. And when it's over, I don't know if I'm going to have to do this exact thing for, post-COVID. But it really is around that. It really is around owning and taking that positive approach to our circumstances.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Candice. And I mean, somewhere inside what you shared there, I heard this whole, I heard two words that came up from Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor today. One was flexibility. I heard that in her section 1. So many of us have learned that we were flexible beyond what we knew before, and I hear that in your talking about control and letting go the controls of the next day, we've all had to do that. It's really been a time like that, and true. And then she talked about management. So it's almost like finding a balance between flexibility and management so that the family could sit within that balance. I heard that in what you shared too there, Candice, Yes, Suzanne.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Doctor. That was a wonderful talk. What I came out from it is that routine. Routine was so important for our family to do. Get up and get dressed. I remember my brother saying to me, no more home clothes, get up and get dressed. So everybody in the family had to get up, get dressed, have breakfast, and have some structure to the day. Now, of course, the children just wanted to stay on the tablet, but we made them go outside, made them do some gardening. And I brought out Scrabble, which I guess is from my generation. And my niece says, Auntie, that's a board game. Do you get the joke? B-O-R-E-D. So we all had a good laugh about it. But the important thing that came out for us was that we actually had time to hear from the children what they were feeling. And we encouraged that discussion. My nephew says, Auntie, I'm going through a dark time. Now, I didn't understand what does that mean, I'm going through a dark time. So I gave him a chance to explain what he meant by being in a dark time, because we are spiritually minded people, but some children don't always follow God. And so they have to understand, or we have to understand their talk as the younger generation. The teenagers are feeling it because they're not able to have their relationships with their girlfriends or with their friends. So how do you help them? And one thing they have told me is, Auntie, I have a coping partner. I have a friend that I call when I'm feeling really down, and he or she helps me through the feelings of depression I might be having. So I thought, well, hey, why can't I have a coping partner? Because that also, how do I get through this? I connected with my girlfriends from school, and we started our own chat group. So we are our own coping partners. So that is what has really helped us get through this time and continuing. And of course, being encouraged by the Archbishop, we are now starting a garden. Not that I could say we are successful, but at least that has helped us come together, and we've made our first tomato choker with our own tomatoes. So that's been helpful as a family. So that's it from me, Kyle.
Thank you, Susan. I'll be coming by for some of that tomato choker later. So just put aside a little bit for me. Thank you. I think I loved something that I heard there, and that's the intergenerational learning. You used the time to learn from the younger generation. They taught you something about coping partners, and you put that into practice. I'm happy to hear that it means this time we also have to recognize that adults don't only have to teach adolescents or children, but we can also learn from them too. And that's a wonderful opportunity there that you presented. Good point. And I want to bring in here our only married couple on the call. And so I would like to ask Dr. and Mrs. Shim if maybe you could tell us, how Dr. Chatoor's talk today, how did it stir in you in terms of your own sense of family life, marriage during this time?
First of all, Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor, thank you so much. An excellent, excellent course. I just took down as much as I could because it's vital information. And I think what struck me particularly that stood out for me, along with what the others have so wonderfully shared, it's linked to something that Susan put out, and that is listening and the village. Those just stood out like two badges for me because that's what works for us in marriage. At your struggles, it's about listening. At your good times, it's about listening. And that has brought us to the years that we have managed to work this relationship. So I think when I thought of it in terms of the COVID and the needs of a family, I think probably in my mind, it is one of the cornerstones, just to be able to sit and listen to what is it going on with the people in there. And it struck me, and it's for married couples as well as anybody, your children and grandchildren as well, just to sit and listen to what is it that they're struggling with. The other thing is the village, which again is a fundamental thing in certainly working a married relationship to any level of understanding. You absolutely need people who believe in what you're doing and think like you. So, and in COVID, I could see it absolutely necessary. Just pick up the phone, as Susan said, and just call somebody. I've done it over and over during this COVID time. Just called arbitrary people I haven't spoken to in years and say, God, how are you going with this thing? How you're managing? And they would share and I would share. And we would come up with wisdom of the sage just from us talking. The kind of things that we come up with, practical wisdom of just managing as two retirees, managing as we have young friends who have young children as well that call and kind of hold on, We don't have any wisdom of maybe academic wisdom for that, but we certainly have the village and the wisdom of the village. And I think those are two things, Doctor, that have really, really stood out for me in the talk because I know it stands out in terms of a relationship here, So I could just picture how important it is in this particular circumstance.
For me, as we go through this period, first of all, again, I want to just say thank you very much for your presentation and how in-depth it was. And for me, I think a few things that stood out. One is that we have to, at this point in time, I found looking inwards and reevaluating things was a very important gift of this time of COVID for me. Looking at what I do in the home, what I do at work, and with my leisure, and coming up with a better sense of what I'm doing right and what I could do better. And I think that was very important for me. The other thing that stood out, other thing that we did that helped us cope very well, and that was finding an online course that both of us did together. And we were able to use that as a means of growing in our knowledge, in our communication, and a way for us to, just get closer together. And that was very important and great for us. One of the things that I wanted to ask Dr. Nakhid, though, is that Chatoor, is that you emphasize listening, and I think that's one of the things that we always have to go back to and reevaluate all the time as to how we listen and how we can better listen. And I just wanted to ask a little bit if she could elaborate a little bit about the listening for us and for the audience at this time. How should we be listening to each other? Could you give us a few guidelines on that?
You have to unmute for us.
Sorry about that. As you know, listening is a skill. And many people hear, but they don't listen. So we could start off with that dynamic. People talk to us and we hear what they say, but we don't listen to what they say. So listening includes the first thing, which is being attentive to the person who is speaking. So that when somebody is speaking to you, you must maintain that sort of eye contact. Because many times people are speaking to us, and if we just look away, we lose them already. Because in their mind, we are not being attentive to what they are saying. And especially for children, especially for teenagers. Teenagers don't like to talk to adults because, as soon as they begin to speak, we jump in because we already feel we know what is the answer to their problem. When sometimes they just want us to listen. So Dr. Shim, breaking down that, the first thing is to be centered. That's the first thing. Somebody is the listening skill of being centered, being attentive to what that person is saying, giving them your undivided attention, not interrupting when they're speaking. And sometimes I'm guilty of that sometimes because, you hear this 10 times already. Let's get to the end. Let's finish it one time, But again, giving them that space to talk, because even as friends, some friends just want to tell us their story, they don't want any advice, they don't want any way to go, they just want us to hear them. And for teenagers, that's also very true. And whilst we may want to give the advice, we always want them to know, even though by the time they begin to speak, we roll our eyes because we know where this is going, we have to put on sometimes a mask as parents. And listen to them, listen attentively, let them know that we are here for them. So I would say, again, this is something that some people may have to practice, especially when they sometimes want to jump in. But the main, I think, key ingredient is attention, being centered and giving the person your attention, your time, so that they can voice their issues.
Thank you very much for those tips, those quick tips for deep listening and for active listening, Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor. And thank you, everybody, so far for the inputs that you have all made for this conversation. And I think what we are all talking around is this whole theme of family. We're talking about building families that are strong families and building families of love. That's ultimately what we want to do. We want to build families of love. And now what we're going to do is take a little break and have a little entertainment piece again coming to us from the Queen's Park Savannah Peace Rally, which we had a couple of years ago. And now what we have is a family of love, a family who tries to build a family of love and display and witness to what it means to be a family of love through music and through art. The Love Movement, people. Let's welcome the Love Movement.
now that our youth have received hope in that song, they want to go through the whole land and heal the land. They want to see the generation changed. This song says that their hearts are now on fire for God, on fire for this land, on fire to contribute to its healing.
When I look around me, I see the tragedy. Just below the surface, there's a million hearts that bleed. Use me, Lord, oh Lord. Your longing fills my heart to see your love and healing move across our land. Across our land. Hearts on fire, burning with your compassion. Lord, my one desire is to see you change our generation. Take me with you, Lord, how I long to follow you. Please take this heart of mine. A sea of endless faces reflected in my eyes, crying out for freedom from their broken hearts and lives. Help me, Lord, oh Lord, to show how much you care. I long to see your mercy fall upon our land. Upon our land. Hearts on fire, burning with your compassion. Lord, my one desire is to see you change our generation. Take me with you, Lord, how I long to follow you. Please take this heart of mine. Take this heart of mine. Take this heart of mine. I give my heart. Take this heart. Hearts on fire, burning with your compassion. Lord, my one desire is to see you change our generation. Take me with you, Lord, how I long to follow you. Please take this heart of mine. Oh, hearts on fire, burning with your compassion. Lord, my one desire is to see you change our generation. Take me with you, Lord, how I long to follow you. Please take this heart of mine. Hearts on fire.
Wonderful to have the love movement there, singing Hearts on Fire, a family of love, witnessing and calling us to all become a family of love too. So as we get to the close of the program, I want to ask Doctor to give us a sort of a kind of integration activity, or almost a kind of call to action. But before she does so, I want to put the rest of the audience on notice that after she wraps up, I'm going to ask you to give me your Snapchat of this experience today. In other words, I want you to just put back into the call a word or a phrase, just a word or a phrase that you want to leave everybody who's viewing with as something essential to this whole journey of coping in COVID with family. Okay, so everybody think about that. And Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor, over to you. You can give us maybe 5 minutes of a kind of well-rounded activity to pull us through this time that we shared.
All right, so Again, hello everyone. We have been speaking about families, and we have been speaking about the dynamics in families, the parent relationship, that of parent to child. But the underlying factor in the survival of families, I believe, during this pandemic is to understand, to nurture, and to heal the relationships within our families. And one of the things I've always looked at, especially the opportunity that this pandemic gives us, the fact that families are now in the same household, they're not rushing out to work or to school or anything, is that the ability to really get to know each other, but in a different way. And I know two of the persons had alluded to it. Suzanne spoke about the intergenerational learning that she is learning with her nephew. And so I know Dr. Shim, when he was speaking, spoke about looking inward and his wife re-evaluating things. And one of the concerns that I've always had in families, especially with the very young and the very old, is that the very young don't know the stories of their grandparents or don't know where they've been or don't take the time to understand those journeys. And as I remember when I was a vice principal in the system, I remember taking my students sometimes to these geriatric homes so that they would listen to these older persons, listen to their stories. And many of these younger persons were surprised that so many things happened in this country over time. So my integrated activity, therefore, would be encourage families to explore their family trees, to have things like genograms, to work together. You are in a household now, you may have, and I mentioned aging parents, find out about their stories, record it. We have devices now that were not in my time, but you can record what they say so that when they pass on, you know what they were about. You know what your grandparents or your great-grandmother was about. You know what was her history. Because I think one of the things, and we talk about values in our families, and values do not come just like that. Values come through our morality, through our understanding of our family members, through the value system, through the things that we have passed along. And I know Aaron spoke to it briefly when he talked about in the family, connecting through going to church, he's losing that and so. But I know one of the things that during this COVID time we encourage was when you come into mass, when you're listening, dress up, have that respect. Don't come to mass or don't listen to the Archbishop in your shorts or in your vest, because there is a respect that I think is being lost in families, a respect for values, a respect for what we grew up believing to be necessary. So again, take this opportunity within families to connect, to listen, especially young and old, to the stories. Our storytelling abilities in the Caribbean is huge. That is what we have survived on. That is what carried us through our rituals. If you did not do it before in families, create rituals. And the rituals could just be having a meal together. No, the ritual could be, let's say, once a week getting together about 5 o'clock and listening to each other, as everybody tell each other a little bit about themselves, sharing with each other. And I would really like to encourage the opportunity, because I think if we do not create this opportunity, it is lost. And when things get back to the whatever normal or the old normal, whatever it is, we do not have those opportunities. So I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that, but I believe that to be an essential integrated activity, bringing families together, ensuring families survive, healing, and most importantly, nurturing the relationships that we have in families.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. And of course, all that we read in scripture, let's say the Christian scriptures, it's storytelling. And so I'm so happy to hear you say that, because storytelling really and truly has become the lifeblood of even our society. Our calypsos, our extempo, our music, that's what it is about. And so Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor, thank you so much for that challenge. So I want to reiterate that the challenge he's putting out to us is to find some campfire time and to do some storytelling in our families. So every one of us who are listening here today, your homework, the assignment from the doc, is for us to build a campfire around your living room, just sit down, or a dinner table, or do something creative, innovative, and tell the stories and listen to each other's stories. And let us also, I noticed you said, record the stories.
Because we have devices, we have the technology, and very young and teenagers may want to do that, and then they could adapt it and put in their own memes or what are all of those new things and make it into things that can be kept for austerity, for posterity, for whatever, so that when grandparents are gone, the kind of technology we have today, Kyle, I am sorry that in my mother's time, she passed before we had cell phones, and I wish that, we could have recorded her voice, could have recorded just how she was so that I could pass it on. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So I want to get the others in to just give us their Snapchat. And that's, in other words, just give us a glimpse of your experience of the challenge you just heard, or anything in this call here today, and family life. Something you want to kind of just put back out into the world before we close. A word or a phrase. Let's start with Susan. Susan?
Okay, I would like to challenge us to say to each family member, I like you. That's my challenge.
That's nice. That's nice. All right, Dr. and Mrs. Shim.
Okay, I would like to say that the phrase that I would say is creativity. The word, rather, is creativity. I think we, at this time, should certainly tap into the creativity in all of us. And we only could do that if we accept where we are and understand that, this is an extended time and things will come back, but they are different now. And creativity and the many things that Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor put out to us as possible things that we could do is really inspiring. Thank you.
You're welcome, Freida.
The two words that come to me are, first of all, solidarity, that we're in it together and we're going to journey this and we're going to make it, and hopeful. Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor, thank you so much for all of this.
Yes, very good. Aaron.
Doctor, I didn't get the opportunity to thank you for this wonderful talk, so thank you so much. For me, my challenge for the families out there today would be have a nice cookout, that tradition, every day someone in the family makes a different meal to see who's the greatest chef, Be creative, like Doctor said, creativity helps the family together,
Yes. Excellent, Aaron. And I think while they're having the cookout, they should tell the stories. So while they're on the barbecue pit, tell the stories. Candice.
Thank you. So much of what I actually have to look at the show again, right? Because I thoroughly enjoyed it. So much Dr. Chatoor and the audience shared. I didn't get to imbibe it all, but the word that came to mind actually, and Doctor used it in her wrapping up, was nurture, and that's what I would like to leave to leave the wider audience with. Take time to nurture relationships. Take time to nurture yourself. Take time to nurture, your growth, planting, as some people have said, your different skills, but nurturing. I think we're given a beautiful opportunity here to invest in our families and in ourselves, and I think we can come out of this better and in a better position.
Yes. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your little Snapchats, your memories, the things you've put back out. I really hope, I know that somehow we've blessed somebody today and encouraged them to enter into these COVID times with a non-violence begins with me disposition. Let's start doing our own work and letting it exude out. Thank you very much, Dr. Nakhid-Chatoor, for being with us. I like you. I'm using Suzanne's words. I like you, Aaron. I like you, Candice. I like you, Dexter and Freida. We like you out there who are looking. Thank you very much, all of you joining us, those in studio. We like everybody. We love you. And we send good intentions and good thoughts towards you. I want to thank everybody for your contribution, because really, this was a very meaningful conversation in 1 hour to have, that we put out so much. And I want to really thank you for opening yourselves and sharing. Our final act today, Susan, get that nonviolence begins with me prayer. And let's just let that be the prayer. Could you pray that for us out loud? It's really a non-violent prayer. That's going to be our close.
Make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. And where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
Thank you, everybody.